Welcome back to Henry Felix Discourses, where we talk about CRT in the schools, K through 12, and the damage that it's doing. Giving specific examples so that you can look at those rather than just see on the news, well, CRT's in the class and that's bad. But you're saying, well, why exactly? And what really is CRT? As I say in my introduction video, James Lindsay is the best place to go for what CRT is. Actually, I've got an even better one in terms of getting it in just a few minutes. I'll put a link in the description of Ryan Chapman's description of it. It's a 20-minute video. You'll love it. It explains it really well. We'll be talking about Winsor again today. I don't have an animus against Winsor. It's just mostly that they have a really good pamphlet that gives plenty to talk about. Some of that, I believe, from Winsor is in-group competition, where DEI came in a few years ago and recently, and they wanted to show that they're not only embracing it, but they're doing it the best of anyone. And, as a matter of fact, that they've always been doing it. It means that they're very specific about what they do, which is actually quite convenient. And we'll be talking about visual arts, as I said. And I think if you don't believe me about they're saying that they really, we'll get to that in a second. First, let's just talk about how you get to this PDF, because there is a PDF. You go to Winsor School, top private school for girls. You put that into your search. Click on that, and you'll go to this. You don't need to see this PDF, but it helps if you want to read more about it and everything. Go to the menu, you click on that, and you get About. Then you go down to Equity and Inclusion. That takes you to this page. You scroll down until you see this blue box, DEI report. Click on that, and you get this page, Report on DEI at Winsor. And then you have this, and you click Read the Report, and you'll get a PDF. Okay, and the PDF looks like this. We're back in the appendixes. If this is the first one you saw, this is an appendix about the philosophy of their main subject areas. Now, so they, as I was saying, they want to show that they embrace it better than anybody else. And this is a very lavish, very good, very well done pamphlet. It's about 100 pages long. They did take it very seriously. And they also want to show that they've always been here doing it. So there's that competition there, saying everybody wants to be the best one. So as soon as you have a movement going, often you'll have one person take a step forward and the next person wants to show that they're even more virtuous than that. And then the next one wants to beat that one. So I think in large part, this is an effort to do that. And I wanted to show you the proof. Here's the very first line in the entire pamphlet. Lift every voice. The Winsor School is deeply committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion practices at both the institutional and individual levels. So that's the new theme for the school, right there. Number one most important thing. And notice this, and has been for decades. Ironically, I think even a year or two ago, if you said, you know, you people have been doing this kind of thing for decades, not Winsor in particular, but a school that was doing this sort of thing for decades, they would say, no, we haven't. No, that's, don't be silly. No, we don't do that stuff. But there really is a long-term plan / laying the groundwork of working their way up towards DEI, which is putting CRT into practice, which is, by the way, putting critical theory into practice, which came from Marxism. Make no mistake that CRT is really just a vehicle for critical theory and ultimately for Marxism. In the long run, they don't really care about CRT. They don't really care about DEI either. They really have much bigger goals in mind. So this is, in a way, this is just a proxy battle when it comes to the schools. But they do like the idea of manufacturing more people who are critical theorists. And we'll see that my thumbnail has a little bit of a metaphor for that. We'll come back to that. But I want to give bonus points to anyone who noticed. Two things about that. First of all, it's the wrong way around. On the Sistine Chapel, that part of the painting should be facing the other direction. I did it this way because on the thumbnail I thought it looked better. I flipped it, which is kind of a blasphemy. And confession number 2, I enhanced the colors. Yes, I used a filter. Wow, at least I didn't cut out the picture. But that's bad. And I think the way I see it, if the visual arts department wants to throw art out the window, why shouldn't I? Even if it is blasphemy against Da Vinci. And hopefully you're saying, what are you talking about, Da Vinci? That's not Da Vinci. I know it's not Da Vinci, but I'm really touching nerves here today because you're also not supposed to call him Da Vinci. If you've been through a real art program at a real college, you'll know. You don't call him Da Vinci. That's not his name. All right, anyway, let's get going. Visual arts. In the past few years, the Visual Arts Department has made a concerted effort to bring artists into classes to provide real-world perspective. Many have been local artists, many women, and people of color. Now notice, in the past few years, this was printed in, I think, 2020. So what they're saying is it's not just George Floyd. No, it's not just George Floyd. It's not like we just flipped like everybody else did and just suddenly took on DEI as our number one goal, literally overnight. We've always been doing this. So we've seen it twice now. Anyway, so they're bringing, many have been local artists, many women and people of color. So I think basically that's great. I can understand it's a girls' school. Why wouldn't you bring in women artists? People of color, that's just sort of a badge of honor for DEI, as far as I can see. If you're bringing in local artists, I think you would probably have people of color amongst that talented pool anyway. And I'm not sure why that has to be put out there, except for the fact that it is showing that they're implementing DEI. Continuing on, the photography curriculum is a specific place where students are asked to grapple with current events, and several students have addressed issues of DEI in their images, from COVID-related inequities to the Black Lives Matter movement. So main thing there is that this is an activist education, and it is grounded in current events. I've said that before. And they've made a choice that it's not so much an intellectual learning environment, but an activist one. This is something Jonathan Haidt, H-A-I-D-T, has talked about a lot, that schools have a choice at some point. Are you going to be an activist school, or are you going to be an intellectual school? And the concept of school up until, for most of history really, is that it should be intellectual. Unless I suppose you could talk about earlier on where religion was really the main, or one of the main things about school. But this move towards activism is relatively new, and it's different, and they don't go together. You can't really have both. So you have to make a decision. They've made that decision. In both the lower schools and upper school visual arts courses, teachers are diversifying and broadening the artists and examples of art used in teaching to include BIPOC, women, I think they just said both those things, but, and a wider global perspective. Okay, whatever that means, except for that it's just sort of, yeah, we're with that global citizenship thing too, the global initiative, whatever it was called. Right now, I can't remember it off the top of my head, which is one of the things that the English department wanted to support. So just kind of throwing that in, I guess. Continuing on, art history offers the opportunity to examine and analyze the dynamics when cultures interact and includes knowledge of different cultural practices and worldviews. Totally legitimate. Okay, no problems with that. Art history is fascinating, and it's also very informative about how artists can be confined. Because if you go back to the Middle Ages, when some of the greatest artists, painters certainly, that we study, they had to work within the confines of things that were demanded either by the church or certainly by whoever their patron was. And that's centered around things like the Madonna. So it's almost as if every single artist has another Madonna. You start going through the history and it's like, okay, now let's see how Titian did the Madonna. Okay, well, great, another Madonna. And naturally they take very different approaches to it, and they are expressing themselves, but it's within confines. And I think we will see that. I'm going to just bring up that picture from the thumbnail again, because this is the picture here. This is St. Bartholomew. This is supposed to be his flayed skin, okay, because he was flayed before being killed. A lot of people also say that that's Michelangelo saying, well, this is me right now because I get harried and harassed by the people who are paying for this church about everything all the time, and it drives me crazy, and it leaves me wrung out and feeling flattened by all their stipulations and demands when I really want to be an artist. And he got lots of criticism. He got praise, but he also got a lot of criticism for this, and there's everybody and his brother had an opinion about what he should be painting, and it took a long time, so of course that was an ongoing thing for a long time, and they're the ones paying for it, so you have to pay attention. And many people think that's himself, and that he's just showing like, this is kind of killing me. So I think if I were going to make one overall point about what they've written up here in visual arts, is that they're bringing in politics to this, and there's no better way to crush art than to bring politics in and to leave the artist feeling wrung out, like in that picture. And I think they're doing that, and I think it's too bad. At least that's what they're saying. This is the philosophy as they have laid it out. Last sentence here. We consider how marginalization, symptoms of oppression, Eurocentrism, and bias operate in art, and what the unintended consequences are. Now, I thought that was a little ironic, just because they're talking about unintended consequences. And they may be very sincere that they want to bring all these things in, and that it's very important for artists to think about all these issues. But I think they do have an unintended consequence of potentially turning artists into this fellow right here. So that's all I really had to offer about visual arts, except one thing. If you look at their actual curriculum, it's pretty solid. The thing is, the teacher can teach a curriculum any way he or she wants. If they want to be a woke teacher, they can do that. The curriculum only means so much. And this is the philosophy. They seem to have embraced it, and there it is. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. Please give me a thumbs up if you like it, and if you don't, give me a thumbs down. I will actually appreciate that too. I like the feedback, and if you care to leave a message, comment, I would be delighted to read it, good or bad. Thank you for joining me.